بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear sisters, my dear daughters, welcome back to a new episode of the biography of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, and to start a new station in the journey with the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, to can live with him in his insisting to convey the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his steadfasting and his firmness in doing that. As we mentioned to last lesson, to just wrap it for the sisters joining, we talked about the attacks and the oppositions for the da'wah and for the message of the Prophet from the disbelievers of Mecca, in like Abu Jahl and Abu Lahab, and how they were annoying the Prophet from time to time. And then it was two events, happy events, happened by the conversion to Islam of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, and Hamza ibn Abd al-Muttalib, the Prophet uncle, and how they were two strong men and mighty men, and they were increasing to the power and to the strength of the Muslims at that time. Also, we spoke about the boycott. The boycott happened by the disbelievers of Quraysh and the siege that occurred on the tribe of the Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, Banu Hashim and Banu Abdul Muttalib, in the valley of Abu Talib, how they were being separated completely from Quraysh, from Mecca. They will not marry from them, they will not make any type of tradings. Even more, there was like a complete siege to the food and to the drinks, to the degree that they used to eat the leaves of the tree. And this actually siege remained for 3 years. 3 years from the 7th year of the prophethood, since the prophethood started, to the 10th year of the prophethood spent by the Prophet and his relatives and his tribe in this siege. And we mentioned that not all of them were Muslims, but because they are the relatives of the Prophet, that's why or they are refusing to surrender and to make Quraysh take the Prophet and kill him. Just refusing to do so, to do that, made the disbelievers of Quraysh made this boycott. And we mentioned it ended, alhamdulillah, by the message of the Prophet to his uncle Abu Talib, when he went to Quraysh and told them that there is an insect that it is the treaty was, or the boycott was written in a paper, and all that words on this paper were vanished, and just the word Bismika Allahumma, by the name of Allah. This is the only word that kept in this paper, and by that this siege was ended after 3 years of suffering. But actually, as we mentioned last time, that this siege had consequences, or negative consequences, on the Prophet two main supporters. The two main supporters for the Prophet was outside and inside, from or externally and internally. Externally was his uncle Abu Talib, was his uncle Abu Talib, and from the inside support was his wife, and both of them were in a very bad condition at that time. For Abu Talib, death happened in this year, 10th year of the prophethood, where the prophet at the time of the death of course, because of the siege and because of the consequences of such hard 3 years, and Abu Talib was an old man. He couldn't bear such a hardship. So after the siege finished, he started to to become sick and ill, and actually it was the illness of the death. And Prophet Muhammad was very eager to advise him by saying to him, "My uncle, you just make a profession that there is no true God but Allah. And I will bear testimony before Allah of your being a believer." He wished, alayhi salatu wasalam, that his uncle to be a believer. And he just remembered all the previous years that he supported him, and he defended him from the disbelievers, and he wished that Abu Talib to become a believer. However, Abu Jahl was there and kept persuading Abu Talib to keep on his original religion, until he finally decided before he died that he will stay on the path of Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib, his father or the grandfather of the Prophet, so which means the religion of their forefathers. The messenger here was sad about what happened and said, "By Allah, I will persistently beg pardon for you till I am forbidden to do so by Allah." And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, "Verily you, Muhammad, you are not guiding whom you like, but Allah guides whom He wills, and He knows best those who are the guided." Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning to his prophet that the guidance to the religion of Allah is according to the Allah will, and Allah as all wisdom from his beautiful name is all wise, and the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows who deserves to be guided. Another sad event happened to the Prophet in the same year, and that's why some of the scholars mentioned about that year, the year of grief. The year of grief, the 10th year of during the prophethood. 2 months later, his wife, his beloved wife, his supporter internally, and she was the first one to hear from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam when he came to her from the cave of Hira. If you remember at that time how he was shaken and anxious, and he's very feared and he doesn't know what's happening, and she started to calm him down and to tell him that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never let you down, you are doing very good things, and started to mention for him. And then she took him to her cousin Waraqa ibn Nawfal, who was a Christian and know that there is a coming last prophet, and he gave him the glad tidings that he will be the prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also he gave him a brief image of the opposition, that he will be attacked by his own tribe and by the people, by his own people, because no one came before by the message that the prophet came with, except he will be attacked by his people. So all these supports and circumstances and these events happened between the prophet and between his wife. Also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided him with his children. We mentioned that all his children came from Sayyida Khadija radiallahu anha. And actually the prophet, all the time after her death, it was something very sad to him, of course, after her death. And he just all the time he remembered her, even many years after her death. Many years after her death, and he when he migrated to Al-Madinah and married a Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha, Lady Aisha, he was always, most of the time, he was speaking about Khadija. And even her friends, the friends of Khadija, he loved to give them food and to invite them, because for his love to Khadija radiallahu anha, to the degree that Lady Aisha radiallahu anha, she became jealous. She became jealous of a dead woman, but just because she found that the Prophet is fond of her and talked too much about her. And she told him, why you are all the time speaking about her? She already died and she was old lady, and now I am here with you, young lady with you. So Allah compensated you by a better than her. So he was sharply replied her that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he not compensated with him with a better than Khadija. Khadija, and start to say about her, she believed in me when none else did. She embraced Islam when people disbelieved me, and she helped me and comforted me in her person and wealth when there was none else to lend me a helping hand. I had children from her only. So here we can feel how much the Prophet is love to Khadija, and his love to Khadija actually remained in his heart even after her death. In this event that we mentioned, in another event also that we're going to have during our seerah after the Badr battle, where the husband of his daughter Zainab was still disbeliever and they was still in Mecca and being captured from the captives. And Zainab at that time, she wanted to ransom her husband by giving ransoming him by giving money. She didn't have money. She only have the necklace of her mother, Khadija. So she sent her necklace for taking or as a ransom for her husband, the captive husband. So when Prophet Muhammad saw the necklace of Khadija between the things that, or the money and the things came, he was very impressed. He took it and started to look at the necklace, and he remembered his beloved Khadija, and he was very impressed at that time. And actually he said, it is the necklace of Khadija. It is the necklace of Khadija. And then he told the Sahaba, the companion at that time, if you wish to give her her captive and give her her necklace, it's up to you. And if you want to take the necklace, it's okay. So the Sahaba, when they saw the tears coming in his eyes because he saw the necklace of his beloved Khadija, they told him, no, Ya Rasulullah, no. We will not take the necklace, just we will let the husband of your daughter to go and to take the necklace with him. So here Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, how much he has kind-hearted, and how much his emotions to his wife even after her death, and how much he was romantic, and he really loved his first wife Khadija radiallahu anha warda. So back to the year of the grief, the Prophet ﷺ, it was very hard time on him, and it's more than ever, because before it was hard time, but usually he found the supporters externally and internally, as we mentioned, his uncle and his wife. Now he lost both of them within 2 months. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not leave his prophet, will not leave him. The Quran came revealed on the Prophet and said one of the verse ayat, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى الْحَيِّ الَّذِي لَا يَمُوتُ, which means that you put your affairs in the ever-living, Al-Hayy, the ever-living that never dies. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Al-Hayy. Al-Hayy is one of the beautiful names of Allah, that the ever-living, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never die. So we should put all our affairs and all our issues in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and will be pleased by that. Now, Prophet Muhammad, after that, and after the end of this siege, as we mentioned, he realized that no more he can go further in Mecca. In Mecca, as a city, he can not go further much as he went, because he will be attacked by the opposition everywhere in Mecca. So he came to his mind to go outside Mecca to another city, trying to invite people to Islam. And this city was At-Taif. Al-Taif is, it's present, of course, up till now. It's a city is beside Mecca. It's around 100 kilometers away from Mecca. And at that time, the Prophet went with his slave, freed slave Zayd ibn Haritha, and they set out to At-Taif and tried to invite them to Islam. And I would like to tell you that the Prophet and his slave went there on foot. They didn't take any means of transport, camel or horses or whatever. No, they just went out with their foods and drink on foot. 100 kilometers. 100 kilometers being walked by the Prophet ﷺ and his slave. Unfortunately, when the Prophet reached the Taif and he tried to talk with the leaders of the Al-Taif, they were very arrogant. They treated him rudely, and moreover, they let their children, struck both of them, the Prophet and his slave, mercilessly with stones until the Prophet ﷺ, his holy feet bleed, despite Zayd's best efforts to shield and protect him. How much they were rude and arrogant with the Prophet, and they treated him hardly. And actually, the Prophet went outside the Taif and with his slave Zayd, and he sat under the shade of a tree and supplicated a dua of someone who cannot know what to do. He was trying to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and make dua at the hardest time that being passed by the Prophet Muhammad, as we will going to have in next slide, inshallah. What was the dua? O Allah, to you alone I make complaint of my helplessness, the paucity of my resources, and my insignificance before mankind. You are the most merciful of the mercifuls. You are the Lord of the helpless and the weak. O Lord of mine, into whose hands would you abandon me? Into the hands of unsympathetic distant relative who would frown at me? Or to the enemy who has been given control over my affairs? But if your wrath doesn't fall on me, there is nothing for me to worry about. The Prophet here is making dua for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like he is complaining to Allah what's happening to him from the people, from the disbelievers in Mecca as the relatives, and as his relatives, and from the disbelievers outside Mecca as his enemies. And all that is nothing for the Prophet if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have the wrath on him. He was afraid, alayhi salatu wasalam, that what's happening, that it is Allah wrath on him, or Allah is angry with him. That's why everything is shut in front of him. He's talking to Allah that if you are not angry with me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you are not angry with me, okay, I can accept all that. The most important for him that Allah is not angry, that Allah is pleased with him, pleased with his efforts. If this effort is enough, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what can I do? What can I do more than that? I've been rejected by my own relatives. I've been rejected by the outsiders and the insiders. If you are not angry, or if it's not your wrath on me, I am pleased of what you are pleased with. So this was a very difficult situation that happened to the Prophet. While he was making this dua, this tree, while he was sat under this tree, belongs to big gardens, belongs to two of the disbelievers. Called, their name is Rabi'a's two sons. One of the owner of the garden, his name is Rabi'a, and this is two sons of this disbeliever. Although they are disbelievers, but they were wealthy Meccans and moved on the ground of kinship and compassion. And sent to him one of their Christian servants with a tray of grapes. The Prophet, peace be upon him, accepted the fruit. With pious invocation, he said, Bismillah, in the name of Allah, before eating. So the Christian servant, his name is Addas, or Addas. Addas, or Addas in Arabic, was greatly impressed by these words. When he heard the Prophet is saying Bismillah before eating, he was astonished about these words, and he told him, these are words which people in this land do not generally use. The Prophet, peace be upon him, inquired of him when he came and what religion he professed. Addas replied, I'm Christians by faith and come from Nineveh, or Nainawa in Arabic. Nainawa is the Prophet replied to him, you belong to the city of the righteous Jonah, son of Metta, Yunus in Arabic. The Prophet Yunus, or the Prophet Jonah, son of Metta. Addas asked him anxiously if he knew anything about Jonah. The Prophet, peace be upon him, significantly remarked, he is my brother. He was a prophet, and so am I. Thereupon Addas kissed the hands of the Prophet. His masters admonished him at this act, but he replied, none on the earth is better than he is. He has revealed to me a truth which only a prophet can do. Here, from this situation, we can find that the Prophet ﷺ, although with all hardships that he just passed through, and the harsh treatment he been treated by the people of Taif, doesn't prevent him from asking this servant about his religion, and he's inviting him to Islam by telling him, I am a prophet, and also the Prophet Yunus is another prophet if you are believing in him. So or in Christianity, you should believe in me as a final prophet. And this which make us know that Prophet Muhammad, he is insisting all the time to convey his message, to present himself, to identify himself to others. He didn't at that time came and said to give up everything, and maybe he can say that I just did my best and there is no response. I just quit. And this may happen to any one of us when he started to make a good thing for the sake of Allah, and sometimes he maybe finds some of the obstacles in front of him or in front of her, so she has the decision to quit and to give away everything, to give up everything and stop. This is an example of the insisting of the Prophet Muhammad to continue to convey his message despite of all the hardship that he's passing through. And to know how much it was hardship to him, later when he migrated to Medina, and even after the Mecca conquest, Lady Aisha radiallahu anha, she asked him, she said in the hadith narrated by her, I asked the Prophet if he had ever experienced a worse day than Uhud. Uhud is the second battle after Badr, where a lot of Muslims being died or killed in this battle, more than 70 of the Sahaba, and it was a very difficult also day on the Muslims. She thought that this was the most difficult day that passed through the Prophet, but she was astonished because he told her no, it was not that day. He answered that he had suffered a lot from those people, the idolaters, but the most painful was on the day of Aqaba, the day he went to Taif. He told her, I set out weird and grieved, heedless of anything around me. He's describing for her his emotions when he was walking out of the Taif. He was walking with grieved, heedless. He's not aware of where he will go or where is the way to go. He was just walking. And this is usually a very hard feeling we have when we have a lot of grief, and this grief is affecting our mind. So we feel that we are walking, but we don't know where we are walking. We're just walking to our feet is taking us to a direction, to a road, to a street, but we are not having any plans, any foreplans where the strict or the precise target we want to reach. So you can feel how much it was hard on the Prophet when he telling her, grieved, and I walked grieved, heedless of anything around me, until I suddenly realized I was in Qarn al-Tha'alib or Qarn al-Manazil. This is a specific site after Taif. There I looked up and saw a cloud casting its shade on me, and Jibril addressing me. Jibril came to him at that time, and he told him, Allah has heard your people's word and sent you the angel of the mountains to your aid. Later, the angel of the mountains called and gave me his greetings and asked for my permission to bury Mecca between Al-Akhshabain. Al-Akhshabain is the two mountains flanking Mecca. I said in reply, so here we can we can see how the support of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came immediately to the Prophet after he mentioned his dua, and after all these grief situations, he sent to him two angels. Jibril is the boss of all angels. With him is the angel of the mountain. And the angel of the mountains, he told him, if you want now, just order me. If you want to bury Mecca, to make Mecca vanished from the earth, to make it as to be leveled to the ground, just tell me now, and I will make all the people to die immediately by making Mecca as a whole city to be vanished. But the Prophet, what he said? He said, I would rather have someone from their lines who will worship Allah. He mentioning that their offspring. He wished that these disbelievers that rejected him may be having their own sons, their sons that will believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and will be from the knights of Islam, and this is exactly what happened. So here we can see the mercy and the kindness of the Prophet in this very hard time by telling that I would rather have someone from their lines who will worship Allah the Almighty with no associate. A concise, meaningful answer, fully indicative of the Prophet matchless, merciful character. Now we're going to have Of course, just to complete the story of the Taif, the Prophet after that, he went to Mecca with his slave, and he was allowed to enter Mecca under the protection of one of the disbeliever. At that time, his name was Al-Mut'am ibn Adi. Al-Mut'am ibn Adi. He was the one who let the Prophet enter the Mecca without being harmed by the disbeliever. You can see how much it was hard on the Prophet even to enter Mecca. He cannot enter his own city except with someone to protect him or under the protection of someone. And this one was disbeliever also, but because of some, as we mentioned before, as social communications between between the Arab at that time, he's just they can defend each other. So he allowed the Prophet to be under his protection and let him enter Mecca. And the Prophet after that start to restore back his journey in da'wah and inviting the people to Islam. Now here we'll just, according to the writer of the book, he tried to make pause at this point and to revise what is the factors inspiring the patience. The patience of the Sahaba and of the Prophet at that time, and the perseverance, how they were patient, how they just can bear all these type of hardship and torments and attacks. He tried to summarize for us certain points just for taking the lesson and the admonition for it. From it, number one is the unshakable belief in Allah. The new Muslims at that time, and the believers with the Prophet, they had, all of them had and of course on the top of them the Prophet ﷺ, unshakable belief in Allah. Allah is mentioning in Surah Ar-Ra'd, ayah number 17, about how the truth and the falsehood looks like. Then as for, this is for the falsehood, looks like the foam over the sea. When you are going to the sea and have these waves of the sea, you will just like a white foam over this sea, the sea water, which easily can go away. But the good things like the pearls and all the jewelry that we can take from the sea is stayed in the bottom. So this is giving an example between the truth and the falsehood, which giving us know that even if you are seeing those people, the disbelievers or the bad people, are having the media or having the people are listening to them, they are more respected between the people. It is not an indicative that they are on the truth. The truth people are the people, the believers, that they are following their religion and their Quran and the Sunnah, and these are the true jewelry, and they are the true precious people. Allah is saying in the ayah, then as for the foam, it passes away as come upon the pangs, while that which is for the good of mankind remains in the earth. Deep in the sea remains the precious things, all the precious jewelry or the precious stones are remaining deep in the sea. Also, the support of the Quran to the Prophet, as we mentioned, coming by describing, try to relieve him about the disbeliever that they are telling about him is a liar, and he know that these people, the same before the da'wah or before the prophethood, was calling him the truth teller, the honest. The same person, the truth teller and the honest, after having the prophethood and start to invite them to Islam, change it to liar, change it to magician, change it to a poet, What happened to the honest and the truth teller before? So Allah is mentioning to Prophet Muhammad in Surah Al-An'am, ayah 33, it is not you that they deny, but it is the verses of the Quran of Allah that al-zalimun, or the polytheists and wrongdoers, deny. So إنهم لا يكذبونك ولكن الظالمين بآيات الله يجحدون. الظالمون بآيات الله يجحدون. So those wrongdoers are denying the verse. But since they cannot say we are denying the verse, they say we are denying you, or you are the liar, or you are the one who brought this verse. So the support come from Allah. Also, it is another factors in patience of the Prophet. The sense of responsibility. The Prophet ﷺ, since he started his prophethood, he has the feeling of complete responsibility of conveying this message. It is a mission came to him from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all his target and goal in his life was to convey this message and to do it perfectly as being prescribed to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the feeling of responsibility, and should be translated to us, that we should be have the feelings, all the Muslim, that we are responsible for conveying the message of Islam to all the people, either directly or indirectly, even by our behavior, even by our appearance, even by our way of talking and communication to others. We are all considered here, especially in the Western countries, as an ambassador of Islam. So we have to have this responsibility on us to feel it that we should be careful about everything that may give a bad impression about Muslims. Another point, important point, unwavering belief. Unwavering belief on the truth of the hereafter. The belief in hereafter is very important to keep us patient in this life. Because when you know that there will be a reward, not in this life, but you have a reward in al-akhirah, or in hereafter, you will be patient. You will be patient not to make riba, or to use riba. You will be patient not to drink wine or to do bad things. You will be patient on your hijab and on your costume as a Muslim lady or a Muslim daughter. You will be patient on many things because you are looking for your eyes on the hereafter. Your eyes are not in this. You are giving your money for charity or for zakah because your eyes is on the hereafter, not this time. People say how she can spend her money. Her money will decrease. No, my money will not decrease because my eyes is to the hereafter. I am increasing my account. My account in the hereafter is increasing. So this is very important to put the belief in the hereafter in modification and changing our behavior in this life. And that's what being mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Mu'minun, ayah number 60. And when he is talking about the believers who give charity, those who give that, which is the charity, which they give, what they give from the charity with their hearts full of fear, whether their alms and charities have been accepted or not, because they are sure to return to their Lord. They are sure that they will return back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is nothing can be hesitate this feeling. So what they are annoying them is these charities and is this good deeds will be accepted or not. Number 5, the Quran. The Quran, the perfection, the accuracy, the precise timing of the holy verse in the various situations that the Prophet ﷺ and his companions were facing were a definite factor in strengthening their iman. You can imagine that when we are saying about the Quran, going to the tafsir or explanation and say this ayah, it was event, there was an event for the revelation of this ayah and that ayah, you can imagine that the Prophet at the same event and the companion around him and the ayat is coming and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them what's happened and what will happen and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. You can imagine it's actually a very inspiring. It's a blessing. It's a great blessing that ayat is coming in front, يعني in the same time that the Sahaba is present with the Prophet and telling them Allah mentioned like that, and Allah mentioned those ayat, and Allah mentions so and so and so. So they can feel that Allah is very near to them, that Allah is knowing how much this had an effect on their strengthening of their iman at that time, to the degree that one of the companion, a female companion actually, after the death of the Prophet Muhammad, she kept crying. So Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu and Abu Bakr passing through her and telling her, why you are crying? This Prophet Muhammad is is a human being, and he died, and all of us were going to be die. They started to try to condolence her and to calm down her. She told them, I'm not crying because Prophet Muhammad died, because Prophet Muhammad, inshallah, I have the wish that I will meet him in the paradise. So they told her, why you are crying? She told them, I'm crying because the stopping of the revelation. The revelation will be stopped. No more revelation will come. She was enjoying the revelation of the Quran by Jibril alayhi salam. They were enjoying the presence of Allah with them by his words. You can imagine every day there is a new action, there is new events. Allah rules is coming. Allah tell you to do that. Allah tell you not to do that. Allah tell you this will happen and you will win this battle. Allah tell you. It's amazing. It's a blessing when you really think deeply about that. It's amazing, and it has a great factor in their strength and in their iman. Also from the things as we mentioned, the glad tidings and the glad situations that being given by the Quran and the Quran and the Quran. So this is one of the most important factors. Prophet after that, he started to, we return back to what happened after the Taif. We just have this pause to know what is the factors that kept the believers in these patience and the Prophet. We mentioned that their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their belief in the Quran, and their belief and the support of the Quran to them, revelation to them, and the support of the Quran to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, the feeling of responsibility, and also their believing in the hereafter. And all these points, we should take them for us also to help us to be patient and to pass the trial of this life and to end our life by the pleasure when Allah subhanahu will be inshallah pleased from all of us. Lastly, we're going to have the introduction to Arabian tribes. How Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he started to think about a new idea for inviting people to Islam, and he got used from the pilgrimage that is happening every year. You know that in Mecca there was a Hajj for Mecca by all the other Arabian tribes, although it was in a wrong way or wrong steps being later corrected by Prophet Muhammad, but there was a pilgrimage every year to Mecca. So Prophet Muhammad, he got used of this advantage by trying to inviting different people to the deen and to the religion. Some of them responded and some of them not. From them, Banu Abdullah, and they didn't respond to him. Another tribes, they like Bani Hanifa, they receive harsh treatment from them. And he addressed to another tribes called the Banu Amir ibn Sa'sa'a, and they told him, should we give you elegance and Allah give you power over your opponents, will you give us right to inheritance and succeed in power? The Prophet actually was inviting the people to Islam and telling them, you support me, I will come to you, because Prophet at that time, he realized that he cannot go through his da'wah in Mecca anymore. Mecca will oppose him by all the means. So he tried to find the tribe that, another tribe that believe in Islam and support him. and take the support and take the help him in his da'wah. So this one of the tribes, its name, the name of the tribe is Banu Amr ibn Sa'sa. They told him, we are going to support you, we are going to have you, but you give us inheritance to succeed you in power. Yani after the death of the Prophet, they should carry on the leadership and the power. The Prophet replied, the whole affair lies in Allah's hands. He gives the power to whomever he desires. And the man commented, do you expect us to incur the wrath and the vengeance of Arabs without the least hope of leadership? We can't, in fact, accept your offers. Here we can feel that those people are thinking about the leadership. It's not a matter of believing in Allah and believing in his messenger. All what they are thinking about the leadership. Then the hope started to flourish by separate men started to came and during the Hajj only also, and started to converted to Islam. Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, he converted to Islam and he went to his tribe where most of his tribe converted to Islam. Also Tufail ibn Amir ad-Dawsi, also he converted to Islam during the Hajj and he went back to his tribe and convinced them by Islam. Qabila Dos, the Dos tribe came, all of them as Muslims. And another companion, Dahman al-Azdi, where also he went to his tribe Azd, and most of them. This is another way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened to his prophet, that just one man come and during the Hajj and convinced of what Prophet was telling him, then he returned back to his tribes and all the tribe being converted to Islam. And this was a hope. A hope started to being appeared, and another great hope is coming and breezes from. This is what, inshallah, what we're going to have next time. جزاكم الله خيرا. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.